Welcome, everybody, to the Fintech Combine. My name is Kris Kovacs. I am your host. I'm the founder and CEO of Constellation Digital Partners, and this is the series where we talk with and sometimes about community-based institutions, the trials and tribulations of digital transformation, and the fintechs that make it all possible. Today, my guest is the Chief Innovation Officer at OTS, Mr. Jeffrey Staw. Jeffrey, how are you?
I'm doing great, Kris. That was quite the lead up right there.
Bam. See how we did that? It's because I'm becoming a professional, Jeffrey. This is not my first episode. So, my friend, you and I have known each other for a long time. And I thought it would be fun for us to get together and talk about, and we're on the circuit of, evaluating fintechs, helping in some cases, helping them learn about the credit union industry, helping them pitch. So I thought it would be fun if you and I sat down and had just an off-the-cuff discussion around 2023 and what it's been like from a fintech technology perspective. Are you up for that?
Yeah, I am. I think it's a great topic because things have changed a lot, right? This has been a pretty dynamic year, good and bad, and I think there are a lot of people who could benefit from hearing about it. At least hearing our perspective, which is certainly a little bit less rehearsed, probably, or a little bit more edgy than maybe some others.
Well, that's the whole idea, right? Like there's conversations that we have when we're together, and this is kind of like a peek into a conversation that we would have over dinner. Probably a very good dinner where you're ordering really great food because your palate is so much better than mine, right? I'd probably be good with mac and cheese and chicken nuggets, but certainly not you. So just to get started, like I said, you and I have known each other for a long time. Can you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell our listeners why they should care about what you have to say?
Sure. So just a little bit about my background. I am the Chief Innovation Officer at Open Technology Solutions, OTS. Now, OTS is a technology QSO. We run the technology for three large credit unions, Belco, Bethpage, and CQ. And then we also have another QSO that we run the technology for called S3, which is a contact center and back office operation. So we're a pretty large operation. We're at 25 plus billion in assets combined, over 2,500 employees. It's a pretty big, pretty tech heavy operation. So we work together with all of our credit union partners to try to make the best out of the technology and out of the spend that we've got to really come up with collaborative solutions. So we spend a lot of time thinking about the future, thinking about the present, and how we can best leverage the assets that we've got in place from a technology and obviously a business perspective, but also where is it that we want to go and what are some of the architectural choices that we need to make to get us to that place, either today and years down the road. Now, when I came to OTS, my first task was building out the new online banking system. We had a homegrown system. I came here and installed the new one, replatformed many of our digital programs. It was really quite interesting, quite challenging at the time, but really a very rewarding situation. Before I came to OTS, I was not a banking guy at all. And I think that was probably one of the reasons why I was a good fit here, because I knew the digital space. I came from really a MarTech background. It's big in affiliate marketing, email marketing. I built a lot of systems from scratch. So it's a rounded perspective. I'm not just a tech guy. I'm really more of a business guy who happens to be a tech nerd as well.
Excellent. And that's why we love you, right? Because you have joined a company of tech nerds, as we say. Nerds. So I wanted to start things off by asking you, what do you think the top trends were from a fintech perspective in 2023?
Yeah, so I've been thinking a lot about this, and it's easy to call out the things that are really bright and shiny. It's hard for me to not answer very quickly. ChatGPT and AI have been the things that have been top of mind, forefront of everything that I look at. And you go to any conference, you talk to any fintech today, and they're talking about how they're incorporating AI or ChatGPT or anything like that, whatever model it is that they're using into their product. But I think that's cool, but it's also super early, and I don't know if it's the best choice in every scenario. There's a lot of marketing. There's a lot of like, hey, let's see what really happens here. we just don't know yet. I think along with that, something else that I've been hearing a lot about is I think faster payments.
Hmm.
Uh, that's a lot of 23 right there. I think RTP came into its own in 23, and then there was all the buzz about FedNow.
Hmm.
But what's that buzz really mean? I think that buzz not doesn't mean too much right now. It means that people are talking about it, but I don't think a lot of people are doing very much about it, and I don't think it's
Hmm.
really shown the impact so far in 23. I mean,
Hmm.
what are you hearing that's maybe different?
So I would say to it, I don't think you can argue that AI is kind of the cornerstone of what the year's been about, right? Everyone's been experimenting with ChatGPT and Midjourney and all these other solutions, right? And I think it's kind of like pulling back the curtain and saying this is the promise of the future, right? We're not there yet. To your point, we're not there yet. There's a lot of integration work, a lot of things to make that possible, but I think it is the beginning of it, right? I would agree with faster payments. I think faster payments, in particular, unveiling the fact that there are some gig economy companies that are directing users toward institutions that support faster payments, that could be a little bit of a catalyst for people to start moving forward. But I think it's still probably a little early. Otherwise, for a little while it struggled. I think it struggled for its business case, its use case, and I think it's found it in this concept of the Ubers of the world paying people faster if you have that, right? So I think that's there. Here's the other trend that I think I saw this year, though, and that was that solutions that had been built in the I've got to have loans era pivoted and said, "Oh, but you can also use us to get deposits," right? So
Yeah,
there's a lot of companies out there that were
saw
doing
that.
like, "Oh, we can help you do auto loans. Oh, and now we can help you get new members," right? So I think there was a lot of that going on that I saw, and it was people really dialing in, looking at their solution and saying, "Hey, I can do more than just the one thing that I thought I could do." I think the jury's out how effective they are in that, right? Some of these were lending systems that were set up to do these things. But I think that was definitely one of the trends I noticed this year.
Yeah, look. You and I were both at Money 2020 just a couple of weeks ago, and I think that lending piece you just pointed out was prevalent. If you go
Yep.
back a year, you saw that Money 2020 was lending all over the place. You
Yes.
jammed packed that room with lenders and people who wanted lending products, and I think that the economy spoke a loud message. Right, you're not going to sell LOS systems. I saw much more of the add-on services. Like how do you make that onboarding a little easier, or how do you validate those documents? Right, we saw a lot of document validation services, and back to the AI. How do you roll an AI to try to figure out, hey, has somebody altered their pay stub or altered their tax returns? Many more things surrounding that rather than just, hey, I got a great way for you to make loans. It's no, now you're making some loans. I want to make your loans a little bit better, which I think that's a natural evolution, which I think was a good thing, not a bad thing, because it weeded out a lot of people who were probably not ready for prime time, who were there last year versus this year.
Yeah, I think if you're looking at folks who are the bust, right? What was the bust in 2023? I think some of those people who didn't pivot and couldn't pivot, right? It's interesting that you call out Money 2020, right? Because Money 2020 is one thing. Venture tech is a little bit earlier in the process,
Mhm.
right? So it was funny because last year everybody was talking about deposit loans, right? Going out and getting more loans. And this year we were at Venture Tech a couple of weeks after Money 2020. And what's happened? Everybody's talking about deposits now. Everybody's talking about recruiting the next generation of members, deposits, having to be able to do that, right? So
Yeah,
I think that what will happen is in a couple of years, those startups that are really kind of maybe a little young, right? What did she's calling baby startups, right? Baby fintechs. They'll grow up, and then by next year, they'll be the ones who are pitching deposits, right?
that's right.
If we still need
Look,
deposits, then
look, I think it's to these fintechs' credit that they can pivot.
yes,
You know,
yes,
that's a winning step, not a losing step. If you're going down a path and you're getting beaten up and not successful, pivoting shows that you're smart, and pivoting shows that maybe you have a chance of making it. So I
Yeah,
like
you
that.
have to. For sure, you have to. You've got to react to the marketplace, and if the marketplace changes, so this is a lesson for you fintech CEOs out there. You have this glorified idea of what your company's going to be like, and here's everything we can do, and we're really going to get into this niche. Well, guess what? If you don't react to the marketplace, you won't have the opportunity to achieve your dream because the market will move past you, right? So I think that's a good thing. I don't cite that as a bad thing. In fact, it's the inability to pivot that I think is where you see the bust.
Yeah, and I want to double down on what you just said there because I think that there are two factors here, and in the last year we saw more of one factor than the other. In the past, it's been, hey, the preferences of the people who are buying your products are not exactly aligned with what you want, and you have to realign. But this last year, we saw a change in the general market conditions, which was somewhat unprecedented in the
Right.
entirety of the fintech buildup, right? So you
Yep.
think about go a couple years back when fintechs are coming out on the market and say, hey, we got this new product, it's cool, it's awesome. That was never tested in a down market, right? These are always been up market inventions. So if it's not cool in an up market, it'll never be cool. But
Right.
the tried and true stuff are things that can go in the up market and the down market too. So
That's
now
right.
is when you get to really tell how good of a product, how good of a designer, how good of a team do you really have when you can make that pivot to make it durable enough for market fluctuation. So it's kind of a cool time to see how good or bad fintechs really are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it definitely testaments that. Is it Warren Buffett has the quote that when the tide goes out, you can see who's not wearing pants?
That's right. That's right. And I think we're seeing that quite a bit here, right?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure, for sure. So we talked a little bit about the conferences we go to, right? We both rack up crazy miles. It's kind of like we'll walk it by in conferences. Hey, Jeff. Hey, Kris. How's it going? Right? As we're passing and going through. What do you think was the best conference of the year for you this year as it relates to fintechs?
Okay. So
And we
I'll have
both now clear, like full disclosure, we both help and support venture tech,
that's
right?
right.
Because we're on the selection committee, so but maybe we have to go beyond venture tech because of course it's amazing, Nick. I don't need a note, right?
Well, I was going to plug the CUNA CIO forum because I am the chairman of that conference.
There you go.
But that aside,
Okay, but those two wonderful, amazing
great
conferences aside, right? What other fintech event would you really call out and be like, man, if I could do that on a regular basis, that would be great?
So I think the one that really surprised me this year was, I think, Fintech Meetup. And I think it surprised me the most because I don't know that I had a lot of confidence in it because for everybody who doesn't know, it was a virtual event in the past. And I think it was pretty good for a virtual event. So I thought to myself, okay, it's going to finally be in person. It's after COVID. What's this going to look and feel like? It actually exceeded my expectations quite a bit. And for those of you who don't know, it's financially a very good conference for attendees because Fintech Meetup, really the idea is that they're going to put you together with their sponsors. So they're paying some of your way to get there, which I found to be, that's a fantastic incentive. If you can say to your boss, hey, this is really coming at a very limited cost. It's a wonderful experience. But I liked the structured way of meeting people, the face-to-face sort of forced methodology. Now, this comes from a guy who met his wife on eHarmony. Okay, so this thing works, right? This whole structured way of doing things, building relationships in a predefined way. I saw that model there, and I'm like, when it works, it works. I could get behind that. So it was surprising. It was good. I think it was productive. I met a whole bunch of people I would not have met otherwise. I don't know that I've gone down the road with a lot of them, but I could see how in the future that is an area where I could find somebody who I could go down the road with.
Yeah, I made some notes. Actually, I called out the very same thing, Fintech Meetup. To me, I had limited expectations going in because, to your point, it had been virtual. But I found just the environment of clicking between meetings, that pace of meeting folks and having meaningful discussions in 15 minutes, and then everybody understanding it's speed dating. Bing, the bell rings, and we're moving on to the next one. And it's just incredibly energizing. I've actually tried to mimic that kind of setup at other conferences by just carving out time and just trying to set up meetings like that. It made such an impression on me, the value of that. Right. And some of the conversations and people I've met there, I have talked to every month since then. Right. And not me trying to sell them something, just me working with them and trying to find out really good things. So, Caroline, you did a really nice job putting on that conference. Right.
It was great.
It really was. And unfortunately, this year, though, it's scheduled as the same time as GAC. Did you know this?
I did not know that.
It's the same week as GAC this year.
That is a bad thing.
Yes.
Yeah, I find that more and more that there are events that are scheduled over each other. Like I think this year there was a Temenos conference that for the first time in however long that they had done it, there was a Temenos credit union conference that was scheduled at the same time as Money 2020.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So that doesn't make any sense to me. All you conference people are out there listening, it seems like we should have a centralized scheduling capacity for our conferences, because there are people who really need to be at some of these things that they happen at the same time. Like that's a tough one, GAC or Fintech Meetup. I mean, obviously I'm going to pick GAC, but
right.
I'd like to be at Fintech Meetup. That's
in
terrible.
fact, we're going to have to split between the two of them, right? We're going to send people to JC and we're going to send people to Fintech Meetup because it really was so valuable. I'm going to change the next question and I'm going to ask a different question, right? Because I don't want to throw anybody under the bus. Outside of Fintech Meetup, did you have a big surprise in any of your travels this year? Like, what was your surprise where you said, you know what, I wasn't, this isn't what I expected it to be from a positive perspective, or it could be a negative perspective, right? So just what caught you by surprise in your travels this year?
I don't know if I have a specific instance, but what I'm going to say was I did see maybe more bigger and better. I felt like conferences got better this year. Content largely improved. When I say that, I'm gonna make a special proviso and say at Money 2020, it was not bigger and better. It was more reasonably sized. Last year was over the top in how bigger and crazy booths and whatever. I felt like actually this year it was way more appropriate. I was actually happier seeing my vendors with more reasonably sized booths this year. Obviously spending money on product rather than spending money on marketing. But I think overall, the content of some of these shows, where they used to just be, hey, here's the expo floor, content is sort of off the side, the content has improved.
Yeah. I went to a conference September called Converge South, right? And it's an investment early stage startup conference in Charlotte. And a couple of hundred people there, not even entirely dedicated to fintech, right? I will tell you from a content perspective, one of the best presentations I ever saw in AI was by one of the guys that was there. I mean, it really was and the neat thing for me was I got to see real startups, right? Real fintech startups who did some really neat things. And of course, sometimes when you meet early stage entrepreneurs, they're pie in the sky. I'm going to do all these things. And it's a good opportunity for us to understand kind of the innovative spirit that's out there where they're talking about and doing things. But then the other part of it is to be a bridge, right? To help these people connect to other people in our industry because of course, every fintech's first goal is to sell to Wells Fargo. Good luck. Right. The reality is we can connect them to an eager group of community of credit unions and fintech investors who can help take part of their dream and make it a reality. So I think I was really surprised. I'm going to try to do a little bit more of that, of just reaching into the very, very small local startup communities. And even found some old friends there. It was interesting. So it really was, that was my biggest surprise of the year.
That's cool. I like the idea of seeing things that are outside of the industry. Right? We go to a bunch of industry events where there's a lot of overlap.
Yes.
So it makes you think, what else is going on out there? This can't be the entire universe of good ideas, and it's obviously it's not. So where are those good ideas going? And sometimes look, they're not even in finance. They're in, I don't know, gaming or
Yep.
some other industry that we don't really talk about very much. But you got to keep your finger on the pulse of the entirety, not just your specific niche. If you really want to see what's going on.
Yeah, I think if you reach into and engage with those folks who are outside of fintechs, you can still be inspired by the models they use, the thinking they use, how they solved problems, and I think those are how we can bring innovative new solutions to our community and our fintechs.
Yeah, I mean, I'll go a little bit off to the side here, but if we think back 20 years, we look at the adult industry. The adult industry was the precursor of uh, the credit card processing industry, fraud prevention, identity and
Mm-hmm.
access. You may or may not like what they did for a living or do for a
Right.
living, but the technology that they employed is some of the basics of the technology that we use for everyday financial transactions today. It was
Yep.
really pivotal in the
Yep.
evolution of fintech.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think if you look today, you can look at gaming, right? I think you can see
Sure.
what they're doing in gaming from how they're creating user experiences, how they make games, I mean, addictive to play to a certain degree, but they're actually pinging those serotonin receptors in your brain. And there are things we can do as an industry that if we put our minds to it, we could actually build some services that do the same thing. Not for the purpose of getting people addicted, right? But for the purpose of ultimately of giving them the education perhaps they need, the access they need, the services they need, right? And being able to do that.
You're entirely correct. I think even a couple years ago, we didn't talk about this thing called experience, right?
Right.
And that's what the gaming industry is teaching us. That
Yep.
you look at Roblox, you look at Minecraft, you look at these huge companies that have IPO'd off of not great graphics, not
Mm-mm.
superior gameplay, but really engaging experiences with kids. They know their market. They know their market
That's
really
right.
well, and they make it easy and accessible to get that feedback, that positive feedback, and make those transactions.
That's
They
right.
know
That's right.
experience.
That's right. Yeah, it helps you learn it, right? So let me bridge that to my next question. What's the best thing you learned this year? I know you're a learner, you're constantly looking at the marketplace and understanding what's out there. What's the best thing you learned this year?
So in January, I ran into a gentleman, a CIO out there in a credit union land, and he was all hepped up about this thing called Chat GPT.
Mm-hmm.
And I was trying to dissuade him in every way that I could possibly think of. Like, this is just, it's not going to happen. Um, and then I sat down and I let him show me a couple things.
Mm-hmm.
And I completely changed my perspective. It was like one of the biggest 180s I'd ever had in my life.
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually surprised that I was so negative against it. I can't believe how negative I was. Now
Yep.
I seeing the practicality of it and being so positive. So I think maybe the learning was, it was not about AI or Chat GPT or anything like that. It was be open to something that's new and different.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be closed off, and listen before you
Yeah.
react.
Yeah.
Maybe that was it. It was more of an emotional lesson than it was a technical lesson.
Yeah, yeah, no, I can certainly see that. You know, when I was going to talk about AI as well and ChatGPT, Kurt Drake and CU 2.0 did a really great kind of expose and kind of did a number of presentations, not expose per se, but did a number of presentations regarding how to use ChatGPT, and that really opened my eyes, right? Because the idea of being able to load in your previous writings, your other articles, things like that, and then being able to say, help me build engaging content for using my voice, using what's important to me, using the things I've written about. Help me build some engaging content for use on Twitter or LinkedIn or others. And then being able to take that and go over to Midjourney, right? And being able to use Midjourney and be able to create images for the content. I mean, it truly is, it's so powerful. I think it can make everybody a marketer, right? And
Totally.
so it's going to stand out. Those who know how to use it, there's the talk about, the whole concept of being a prompt engineer, right? Of being able to get the solution you want by engineering the right prompt that goes into AI. Like that's entirely new concept to me, right? But one I fully
Yeah,
appreciate after this year.
that's the new data scientist, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. It's gone from data scientist, the guy who knows how to use the database, to the guy who knows how, or the girl who knows how to use the query tool, right?
Yes,
Because knowing SQL is no longer important, right?
that's right.
That's out. Now you
Yeah,
have to know how to descriptively define what you want in a lot of detail so you can get the right thing back. And I'm with you. Um, I think one. It's funny. I had my entire organization in front of me, and I was trying to describe what AI means. How do
mm-hmm.
we move this forward? Well, this was probably February, right after I spoke to that guy who changed my mind. I wanted to change the mind of my company as well. And the first thing that we did was we played that video clip from Good Morning America back in the day when they were trying to first figure out what is this at sign and email. And I was thinking to myself, okay, this is the degree that with which this is transformational technology.
Mm-hmm.
It's like email, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we look back and we say these guys were super silly. How could you not know what an email is? But in 20 years from now,
That's right.
we'll look super silly and say, you guys were not using AI to do blah, 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 whatever it is. We'll look stupid. And
Yeah.
yeah, that was an eye opening experience for me.
Yeah, I heard somebody say it, and I used it in some event that I was talking at, and I said, it's nobody talks about the internet anymore. Like you
Right.
remember in the early 90s, like, oh, the internet is going to change things. Like we don't know what the internet is, the threat of the internet, right? So I think what we talk about now are digital solutions that are built and enabled by the internet, right? I think we're going to see in the next year, and this isn't the prediction part of the podcast yet, but I think in the next year, we're going to see us start talking more about the applications that are running on AI, right?
That's right.
And not necessarily the underlying, basic technologies, right? Because, large language models are going to really unlock a lot of things for us. And that's really just the beginning. When you look at, there was just an article, published this weekend that was talking about how AI is now predicting the weather, right? You think that, oh, well, that's no big deal, right? Well, if you know how the weather is actually predicted, it costs hundreds of millions of dollars a year. And now Google's able to do it on a laptop, basically. They're able to use the same
Powerful
inputs
stuff.
and get better results. You know what I mean? So that's where it's going to unlock efficiencies and do lots of those crazy things, right? Okay. Well, listen, Jeff, I could go on forever, but I want to pick your brain on some particular technologies. Okay. So we're going to get into this. We're going to get into the rapid fire question phase for the year. Okay. I'm going to throw out technology, and not technology entirely, because I obviously believe in it. I'm going to throw out a technology term, and I want you to tell me whether it's fire, it's awesome, it's where it needs to be today, it's too early, right? You know what? It's got some opportunity, but it's too late. Or I want you to tell me it's complete bullshit.
Okay.
Now we're going to
Those are
beat
my
that
only
out.
options, right?
Right. Fire, too early, complete bullshit. Okay. There you go. Anson, the producer, is laughing at me because he knows he's going to have to beat all of these out. Ready? So here we go. Rapid fire. Okay. Blockchain.
Yep. Fire.
Why?
Because you look at identity. Blockchain is the answer to identity, and it's like very early in the fire, but the fire is building. It was early for a while. People didn't understand it. Now people do understand it, and I think the realization is today's identification and authentication methodologies, they're not durable and sustainable. We need something that is it's federated, and blockchain is a way to do it.
I completely agree.
Coming here.
Fire for blockchain. Artificial intelligence.
I think that's fire too. I mean, that's what people are investing their money in right now.
Yep, that's true, especially from a VC perspective. Fed now.
Too early.
Mm-hmm. Agree, too early. Machine learning.
Kind of bullshit. Kind of.
Mm-hmm.
I think it had some promise, but look, I don't know. Took a couple classes in machine learning. I wanted to make sure that I did actually know what I was talking about.
Right.
It seems that I did because it didn't change very much from when I took statistics in college.
Ah,
Right?
yes.
Machine learning is just you take a whole bunch of firepower and you throw it, on SPSS or something.
Yep.
It's just advanced statistical learning. It's nothing new. I
Yeah.
think we've been doing this for a long time.
I think you're right. I think if you stack up, in the early days, they called them expert systems, neural networks. They were essentially all algorithms by any other name, all precursors to AI. So, at this point, let's call it AI. Let's move it forward. Let's keep it going.
I agree.
So here's my crypto.
So this one could be a bunch.
Right?
I could see this. This is, I think it's bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also too early.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I think just like blockchain, this is the future.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't understand it enough today. This is like blockchain was a couple years ago. We don't get it enough. We're not comfortable enough with it. It's gonna be something. It's not fire yet, and it's certainly not total bullshit. But it's just it's not there yet. There are not enough people who are trustworthy, who have demonstrated mastery of the topic.
Right. I will tell you that as soon as the spot EFTs are approved, you will see just how fire they are. Right.
I agree. That is a change.
For sure. Talk about robotic process automation.
Total bullshit.
Oh, interesting. Good. Tell me about it.
Right. Probably people don't agree with me on this one. So I think it was a fad. I think also this is very little difference between today's RPA tools and what I was doing with Microsoft Excel 20 years ago, right? As a macro. Okay. But I think what has been happening with tools like UiPath or Automation Anywhere, any of these guys, is they are taking good engineering and making bad engineering out of it. They're saying, use this tool to do things quickly. Don't do it right. The right way is using UiPath or whatever to do a quick prototype. Say, hey, if I were to build this out, does this bring me a positive ROI? Not, this is my durable long-term solution. Because the licensing is not good for that. It's going to be more expensive over time. What you need to do is use it as a prototyping tool, and then go back, build the API connection. So it's QA tested, it's monitored, it's sustainable. I'm not on board with the RPA company's way of thinking about it. RPA is a good tool, but the way that it's in the marketplace, bull.
With the half step, I like that. I think it's a little bit of too early. So I'm going to disagree with you. It's too early because I think it's in how it's used. Right. I see it as a precursor to microservices. Right. That if I have a little robot that's taking essentially an API call and then executing something, what I'm essentially doing is that really complex process of taking my organization and feathering it into these microservices, and then, to your point, going back and doing the actual coding, right, to build the API set to do those things. I think that's why I would put it on the too early side of that, because I just don't think it's going to deliver long term on the promise. And I think you've demonstrated, what you're thinking. It would agree with that. I think forward.
Actually we may describe it differently, but the way we think about it is exactly the same.
Yeah. Chatbots.
Ooh, that's a good topic. I think it's fire. I think, but I'm not entirely sure. I think that there was a lot of hype about it. I think we've seen a lot of products that probably don't do everything that they said. This was a lot of sales, and now we have to see going back to the well and building them out to do what they need to do. And once those are made well, they're gonna fly off the shelf. Yeah. But today it's a little early. So in between there, maybe.
I would say from an potential impact perspective, chatbots are fire. right? You can't argue with institutions who really, really focus on doing this right. I know a credit union that's knocking down 95% of calls that are going in because it's knocking them down and understanding what the member needs. But this isn't a set it and forget it. This is not a Ron Popeil product you're going to see late at night. This is something someone has to constantly maintain. And if you're willing to have somebody there constantly maintaining it, I think it can be fire. Otherwise, it is a waste of your money.
I agree. That's actually probably the most key point there. I think that the perception, at least from the credit union perspective, is that I could just buy this thing, right? It's a product. You're right. It's not a product. It's a product and a service. You need to apply services to it to keep it maintained and up to date. Without that, you hit it right on the head.
NFTs.
Too early.
Interesting.
It was cool. Monkeys are cool, but they didn't do anything for us, right?
Right.
NFTs will one day do something for us, but it's not there yet, and the killer use case has not yet been developed.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with you. Although I have a goated goat or something that every time I talk about NFTs, TJ shows me the picture I send him and goes, I have the same thing, Kris, because you sent it to me, right? You don't have it exclusively, right? So he reminds me of that every time it comes up. But, here's the thing. I had somebody this year kind of give me some feedback on, and it was two things. One, what if receipts were NFT'd? What if statements were NFTs? Right. So they were immutable. They were available. They could be inspected, right, with the right things. And members always had access to them. Right. So I think there's an opportunity to think about some of the documents we create as NFTs, because I think that could be the bridge into you're talking about looking for the application, right? What's the right application to begin with?
I think that's right. And that's the way we used to talk about blockchain, right? What is the application of blockchain? And it's these two things come together, because I think one of the major applications we had always talked about was education, transcripts, right? Well, your college transcript should be an NFT, right? That makes sense. All those things. So I'm with you. It's once we create those things, then we're in good shape. But until then, it's problematic.
Smart contracts.
Too early. Mm-hmm. I think one of the smartest things in that whole ecosystem, but just like the NFTs, we don't have the killer use case yet, and we don't have acceptance of the killer use case.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that one. I would agree with data lakes.
It was a toughie, because I just had this conversation with somebody else, and I think it's good, but it's legacy. Mm-hmm. I think when you start looking at the fire, where's the fire here? The fire is not the data lakes. The fire is the new visualization tools, the new tools that allow you to take raw data and do all the manipulation with things like ChatGPT and LLMs and say, I don't need this data lake. I don't need transforms. I don't need any of this intermediary stuff. You just take the raw data and I'm going to do everything you need. That's the fire. That's where things are at.
So I said they're bullshit, right? Exactly for the reason you're talking
about.
I
think I said that too. Yeah.
The tools are changing in such a way that concept of having to build these large bodies of data that we've spent all this time aligning and feeding and supporting and integrating and doing all that. The tools are now doing that for us. They're moving very, very quickly.
Yeah.
Is Internet of Things still a thing?
I don't think it's called Internet of Things anymore, but I think it is a thing. I think it is fire, because I don't know what you buy today that doesn't have an app or doesn't have some sort of connectivity to it. It's actually it's past the point of fire. It's table stakes.
Very good. Very good. We have seen 1,000 fintechs are like, we round up to do this. We round up to pay off debt. We round up to invest. We round up to save. We round up to save the planet. Round up fintechs is what I wanted to throw on the table to you.
Oh, man. I think this is a big pile of bull. I struggle with paying a fintech to allow my member to pay me or put money into an account to round up. First of all, I think what these fintechs don't understand is most of the cores provide this as an app. Right? So why am I going to use your experience if I can provide it myself with my online banking provider natively? I'm not paying you for this. In fact,
Mm-hmm.
I, I might find it even offensive that somebody offers core functionality as a fintech upsell. That's problematic to me.
Yeah, yeah, I would agree with you. I would agree with you. We saw a couple of folks this year doing what I would call fintech, climate impact fintech, right? What's your take on that? This concept that you can increase engagement with consumers by focusing on sharing their impact on from a climate perspective.
Okay, so I actually think that this is too early, but almost fire.
Okay.
Um, I, so look, I'm probably going to get a whole bunch of like boos when this goes out. This is not really my wheelhouse.
Right.
I'm not like, hey, I like the environment, but I'm not like an environmentalist.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a hard time getting over this. But when I saw some demos, I began to realize that yeah, there are people out there that this is major league impacting to them,
Mm-hmm.
and this could move the needle. When I
Yeah.
started talking to a couple people, and I looked out, one of the real game changers in my mind was I use United to book travel tickets, and United now shows their carbon footprint for every single flight.
Wow.
I said, you know what? United doesn't just make that decision out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and so the more I thought about it, the more I talked to people, the more it seemed like this was a probably just to a certain population very important. And then at Venture Tech, I talked to a couple of these guys, and it became obvious to me that on their own they're going to struggle,
Mm-hmm.
but they need to be partners with companies like Fiserv, who owns CardHub,
Mm-hmm.
and some of these other card controls people. Once you get
Mm-hmm.
that data in there in this one interface, I think that this is going to be a difference maker.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree with you. It's probably a little, for me, it's probably a little on the too early side. Again, I think it's valuable and I think it's worth pursuing. But I think the meeting the case just yet where people are making decisions based on that, it's probably a little too early for that.
Yeah, and
Right.
I don't know if they're making a decision to buy here or
Right.
buy there, but
Mm-hmm.
maybe they're using this card more than another card because this
Mm.
card has climate data or some other
Right.
preference data inside of it. So I don't know if it's like I'm going to go shop at Whole Foods versus Safeway, but it might
Right.
be I'm using my credit union Visa versus my Chase Visa. But
Right.
that
Yeah,
may be it.
that could very well be. Could very well be. Open banking.
Open banking, I think, is about to be on fire. I think
Mm.
it's not quite, but I think it's about to be. Uh, I'm beginning to work on some CFPB regulation regarding open banking, and I'm
Yep.
seeing where they're going, and it's happening to us whether we like it or not. So it's about to be huge, and those who can take advantage of it will see a major windfall.
Yeah, yeah, no, I agree with you. A little early right now, but will develop very, very quickly, like a fire usually does.
That's right.
Right. How about the concept of challenger brands? The idea of starting a new institution with a different brand to try to attract young people.
I think it's kind of bull.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I think I've seen a couple institutions try this, and I don't know why they failed, but they don't seem to be getting the traction that I would have expected they would get.
Mm-hmm.
It may be a marketing issue that the ones who have tried it are they're financial institutions, they're not marketing institutions, so it may be challenging for them. Like I think if you look at some of the very successful fintechs out there, they're successful because they're monster marketers. Like Chime,
Yeah,
Dave, but all
yeah,
these guys, monster marketers, right? They know how to do
yeah.
pipelines and funnels and optimization. It's not so much that they have this great financial product, right? They got a debit card that does a couple things. Everybody has got a debit card that does a couple things, but they know how to
Mm-hmm.
market it better. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know that we've seen that from these challenger brands at least in the
Yeah,
credit union industry.
yeah, yeah. I think you're right. I think the brands that we're going to see emerge in the future, the new ones that they are going to be, aren't going to be a standalone brand where at the bottom it says brought to you by your local credit union, right? I think instead it's going to be, in some cases, real institutions, right? New credit unions and community banks standing up who are focused not on communities of geography, but on communities of self-identified groups,
Yeah.
right? Where a group self-identifies and says, hey, we are a community. And then based on that, I think there's an opportunity for a new institution. But in that case, now you're very dialed into what that community needs, right? And what's
Right.
important to them. And I think marketing gets a heck of a lot easier when you can do that, right?
Yeah.
Okay, last one. Digital card issuance, the ability to deliver a debit or credit card all the way to your mobile device.
So I'm going to call this one a little early, but I think that this is going to be a major fire in the next couple of months once it gets released everywhere. Because I think we're on the precipice of Fiserv's product going live.
Right.
It's going to be huge.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's going to be just the next step in the process. Fund the account, get the card before you're even done, right? We're trying to give that Apple-like experience, and I think as community-based institutions, this is how they can do that.
That's right. Everybody saw the success of Apple. Nobody's going to deny that. It's right. Now I want a piece too.
That's right. Well, excellent. That completes the rapid fire round. Very nicely done, sir. Just a couple of questions to close out, Jeff. What are you excited about for 2024? Where are we going? What's got you interested for next year?
I do want to see where faster payments goes in 24. I think that there's an opportunity to make some real things happen there. And another thing, sort of aligned with faster payments, I want to see where Pays goes. Pays, if people don't know, Pays is a way that you could, with just your email address, make a payment at an e-commerce provider on your card at any of your financial institutions. So it's going to be really accelerating the process. It's an EWS service, just like Zelle. It's Zelle for e-commerce. I think that for the financial institutions who get in early, could be a significant interchange bump. But I guess we'll see. That one is really early, but I think it's going to be a huge fire.
Yeah, I think I'm most interested in seeing how credit unions are recasting their future as they learn more and more about artificial intelligence, right? Like the thing that worries me with AI is that I think in some cases, to get to where we ought to be and where we ought to be thinking about, right? We ought to be talking about fully autonomous AIs that are supporting members directly, right? Who are co-pilots to employees kind of thing. I don't know that we're shooting, a big enough shot, that we've got a big enough moonshot rocket set up to do that, because the reality is that could take many years, several years, 5 to 8 to 10 years to get to. And unfortunately, that's beyond the window of most CEO retirements, right? So I'll be interesting to see can we get enough going in AI where people start pushing the envelope beyond, simply, hey, help me write this. Help me, clean up this article, or help me clean up this this paper that I'm writing for something, right? I think that's what I'm interested and excited in seeing. Last thing, and I didn't prep you for this, so this is totally off the cuff, okay?
Yeah.
2 predictions for next year.
Oh, okay. I think there is no recession.
Oh, economist Jeff has shown up. Yes. I'm sorry. Hang on. Everybody back up. We're talking economist Jeff. Yes, Jeff, please tell us the good news about the economy. This will be great.
I think the economy is what it is for the next year.
Yeah.
And I think we will see a record number of mergers in the next year.
Okay. Those are good. Those are good. So we'll come back and we'll check our predictions.
Yeah, we'll see how stupid I sounded a year from now.
So I'm going to give you 2 predictions too. One, the PSCU and co-op merger is going to open the door to a new major payments provider in credit unions.
Oh, I like that one.
Right? So someone's going to step in. Could be with a new processor behind the scenes, could be with an existing one in a new way, but someone's going to step in and say, you know what, there isn't there's enough room here for two people. And I think somebody steps in and does that. The second part of that, my second one is that I think, and I completely agree with you, that we'll see more mergers next year than maybe we ever have, right? Certainly more than this year. My bet is we're going to see next year twice the number of credit unions chartered in 2024 than we saw in 2023.
I like that one. I think that one also is true. I think both years are very good.
I am super excited about where I think credit unions can go. And I think that we're going to see a renaissance of the credit union business model. And I think while it's true, some of the legacy has to be merged away, right? I can hold these two things can both be true. The old model has to be merged away in some cases because it doesn't fit with the future. But I think the future is new credit unions opening. So twice the number next year in 2024 than we had in 2023.
That's a wonderful prediction, right? That if that happens, then the industry is going to be in a very good spot.
That would be. So listen, my friend, thank you very much. It is always a pleasure to hang out with you on the road and have these conversations and talk about this. This has been a little bit of a peek for folks. If they ever walked up to us at a conference, this is what it would sound like, right? We've got lots to talk about. So listen, right now I want to wish you and your family a very great holiday season. I hope you have a wonderful new year, and I will see you there on the road. Okay, my friend?
Thank you very much, Kris. This was fantastic. And anytime I'm welcome, happy to come back.
Excellent. Great. Thank you, everybody, for listening to this episode of the FinTech Combine. Thank you to my guest, Jeffrey Stahl from OTS. It was a great conversation. I really appreciate it. Remember to like and subscribe on your podcast channel of choice. And don't forget to sign up for our Discord server where we can keep the discussion going. With that, we'll see you next time.